I've committed my adult life to being a professional snowboarder, and I've never thought about, it ending for any other reason than me being done. But now it's starting to, the access is going away, and it's hard.
Traveling around and having the experience of working on the snow and, just it's my career and I love it. And but getting to see all the different areas and how they're being affected by this climate change and the drought in the West Coast is huge. It's starting to be big and it's starting to affect a lot of people.
I'm on my third continent just chasing snow, and here I am. I can barely go snowboarding myself, and I have every single, asset available to get where I need to go. And, you start scratching your head like, wow, this is pretty real. Like, this is going away.
This is the first year in the 38 years of the ski area where we effectively had no top-to-bottom skiing. There's been years where it's been late, early February, mid-February. But usually March turns on, we get a bunch of good storms, and we have some great skiing to finish out the year. This year, that just never happened. In a normal year, I'd be standing on 4 to 5 feet of snow. There'd be snow from where I am all the way to the top. We'd have usually long days, plenty of sunshine, in between storms, and lots of fantastic skiing and riding. So obviously this year is a drastic difference than that. And so before you know it, we're sitting up here and we've got, what looks like perfectly skiable conditions at the top 400 vertical feet. But as you get to the bottom, it's just grass. It's almost heartbreaking. You get your first 200-300 verts, some great turns in, some powder turns, and then you get down below and you're trying to traverse rock and gullies and saplings and that sort of stuff. EAGLECREST with snow has the terrain, has the access to a terrain of as good, if not better, than most ski areas in the country. It's really amazing what is offered in such a small footprint. We've only got 4 lift, we're 1,700 vertical feet. What you can access within that ski area boundary or just outside of it is second to none. There have been some good days with some decent turns. It just hasn't been able enough to actually open the chairlift at the bottom of the mountain. So people have been coming up here and hiking and making shorter laps on all the snow that we do have. It's one of those, at 33 degrees, we can get 1.5 inches of rain. But at 31 degrees, that's, 1.5 feet of snow.
The winter this year, it fits a trend that we have been seeing. It's climate change. And the change for us here in Alaska happens to be primarily a warming trend. A trend over the course of 10 years, you see the average temperature go up 0.5 degree. From a climate standpoint, that's a big deal. There's always going to be snow. It's just a matter of how high up into the mountains you're going to have to go to get to it, or how far north you're going to have to go on some of the flatter areas. We live and die by that 1 degree. And this year we just never got it.
Riding that super fine line between epic and total shit is, we've just kind of started teetering the wrong way. And as a professional snowboarder, I'm seeing it. And it's not like I live in one spot where I'm like, oh wow, it was warm in Mount Baker this year. I mean, I was in Europe for a couple weeks. I was in Japan for a couple weeks. I've been in Alaska for a few weeks. I was Washington, Montana. I was in Tahoe around Christmas. Everywhere I go, everybody else that's skiing and snowboarding and also aware of that fine line are talking about it. It's changing, and it's changing fast.
This boat ramp's been closed for I think for like 2 years now. Docks are like not even close. And those cinder block things out there are anchors for boats. You looked up in the mountains and there was no snow to refill the lake. There's nothing in the mountains. They were like, oh, it'll kind of fill up, but no. So right now we're in South Lake Tahoe, California. It's my hometown. I was born and raised here. Right now we are standing where there's supposed to be water, dropping of the lake level has kind of been happening for the last 4 years, but we've really seen the dramatic effects in the last 2 years. It's scary because you look at the lake and you look at the fires that we get around here, and there's nothing in the mountains to refill that. There's no water coming down. What we have is right here, and it's slowly inching away.
Last year, and by a significant margin, was the least amount of snow the station has ever measured. Less than a third of our average annual snowfall here last year. We've had some dry years, but nothing like last year. I was very surprised. I wouldn't have thought the Donner Summit could produce a winter with so little snowfall. This site was established in 1946, just after World War II, to kind of answer the questions of how does the snowpack that builds up in the Sierra relate to the water flow we can expect in the spring in California's big river systems. And of course, that continues to be really key because California gets at least 50% of its usable surface water from melting Sierra snowpacks. So the snow is a huge factor in California, and there's no business like the water business in California. When we raise the snow line, the average elevation where rain turns to snow, we cover a significantly less percentage of the terrain with snow. As you go up in elevation, there's less terrain at any given elevation. I know the ski seasons and a lot of the ski areas were cut short, and people are getting pretty frustrated, I think, with the lack of snowfall, being that last year was the 4th year in a row that we've had very modest snowpacks.
We've been getting a lot lower than the average amount of annual snowfall. Last year, we ended up with 123 inches, which our average is 400 plus. So we're definitely below that average. It's kind of tough on the days skied, it's tough on the conditions, but we do the best with what we have. We're thinking of other ways to repurpose snow. Like, for example, when we have 13 acres of parking lots, we're going to corn row all that snow that ends up there, and we're gonna put it on the slopes. We're gonna do everything we can to get whatever snow that falls naturally onto the slopes. We obviously root for every inch possible. When we get snow, we get people. We closed last year on March 16th, and that's about 2 weeks earlier than an average closing. We closed it down so suddenly and abruptly that people didn't get there last day, but we could not hold on any longer. So this is the top of where the half pipe would be.
Yeah.
We'll just come up here to this landing.
So yeah, we haven't really gotten to build a half pipe in a lot of years because we have had no snow, and Sierra doesn't have a lot of snowmaking. Because the half pipe is mostly natural snow that we fill this gully in here. This is like the drop-in area. Then we fill the gully in, and it's pretty cool that you can build a half pipe with all natural snow. So that's kind of what we depend on. This is the first place I ever rode in a half pipe. I actually have a photo. My mom has a photo she'll have to show you. I mean, I did a lot of firsts here, my first tricks and my first time trying jumps, and it's a big part of this community.
Not too fast, make some turns. Make some turns, Maddie, make some turns, slow down.
These are the Chilkat Mountains. I spend every spring I can up here snowboarding in this range, and it offers the best terrain that I've ever found in the world. Yeah, so normally we're getting dropped off at about 5,000 feet and riding powder all the way to sea level, down to the riverbeds. This season, we haven't been able to fly, below 2 grand. The helis can't even land because there's so much shrubbery and trees where normally it's just an even snowpack. I mean, you wouldn't think it would happen all the way up here in Alaska, but they've had some of the craziest rain events and warmings that they've ever had in recorded history.
We're sitting up here, and it is definitely warmer. It's warmer in Southeast Alaska. It's warmer in the interior. It's way warmer on the West Coast. Things like IDITARODs are changing, and all the ski areas in Alaska have been affected.
This year we had very low snow all year, which caused a lot of teams to have to travel a lot to train their team. Most of us live in places that are ideal for training sled dogs. If you're gonna have 100 sled dogs, you better live real close to the dog trails. We were fortunate this year. We didn't have to travel too much, not compared to the mushers that live south of us. The race, however, was not able to start from its normal location in Willow, which is where we live. They had to move the start of the race about 200, 300 miles north to Fairbanks.
And what's happened this winter is that by and large, for the most part, the predominant or prevailing upper level pattern has been that right there. And what that produces is a lot of what's called fetch or flow from the south to the northeast into our neck of the woods, Hawaii being right here, flowing up towards us with this very warm, very moist air mass, also pushing the warmer surface water of the Pacific Ocean north into the Gulf of Alaska. And this particular little permutation of the way things have worked out for most of this winter has had the eastern seaboard in this trough and the western part of the United States under a ridge. Warm weather for us, cold and snowy for the eastern half of the country.
I sit with, my family's all from New York and Boston. I go out and have lunch with them, when we're visiting, and it's like, Lucas, you really think that climate change stuff is real, And I'm like, it's pretty real, and it's going to be a problem where professional snowboarders are no longer the only people whose careers are getting ripped away by it. That trickle is gonna come pretty far back.
It's happening. We can see it. You look at just about any record, long-term record, and you can see the change is happening. And you don't really have to go any further than about a half a mile through the woods right here is Mendenhall Glacier. And in the short time that I've been here, a little bit less than a decade, I've seen the glacier retreat over 600 yards. You can't really make that up. It's melting, and the only way you can melt a glacier is to warm it up.
I would say that the Mendenhall Glacier is actually the icon of Juneau. You see it in the magazine articles for Alaska Airlines. You see it in the ferry brochures, and people talk about it. It's a big deal here. I've been in Juneau for 33 years, so when I first came, the waterfall that you see behind me was landing on top of the glacier, and it's now, more than a mile back behind that. This glacier is symbolic. It's symbolic of change occurring. And change happens, right? That's just part of living on Earth. We have changes in weather patterns, but what's particularly important about this is that the scientists are saying this change is caused by us, and it's of a global scale, and Alaska is uniquely affected because we're at high latitudes, which are much more affected than mid-latitudes or low latitudes.
This year was definitely unusual, and having lived here all my life, I don't ever recall a winter like this. Usually in the winter you can ski all over town just because there's snow on the ground, but this year we had cold weather without any snow on the ground, and then we got rain. And I only shoveled once this winter, and I have a bobcat that I can plow snow with. I didn't even start it this winter.
You don't want to walk around town because, me being the ski area manager or other employees or just other skiers, it's all you can talk about is the lack of snow. It's the complete opposite of when it's snowing hard and everybody's got powder smiles on their face. It's just everybody's down. And you just try and find ways to make ourselves feel better. But ultimately, we lost out on a ski season and we feel gypped.
When I was a kid, I remember a week of snow days, weeks upon weeks of snow days. It used to snow by the foot instead of by the inch, and now it snows by the inch, if it snows at all. My lifetime hasn't been that long, and to see it change like that is crazy, and it's even scarier for my parents and my grandpa who's lived here to not have ever seen this change before in their lifetime.
I've skied at Sierra Tahoe since before it was Sierra Tahoe. I started out there when I was 2. It's part of your family, it's part of your home, and when you see it looking bare and dry, it's sad.
And then in the back, if you guys want to see the river. And so it's super dry out here. Usually it doesn't turn brown until deep into the fall, but we've kind of cut all the sprinklers off because there is no water.
Right.
In the winter, I haven't really been back here at all the last 3 years. It's definitely super sad that it's hard for me to come back to my hometown in the winter because there's no snow.
People don't want to come up. They don't want to ski, and they don't ski, and then they don't, eat in the restaurants and rent stuff and stay places. And then, you know, we all tighten it up a little bit more, tighten our budgets up a little more.
There's bike shops in town that do bike repairs in the summer and then ski repairs in the winter. And when they're switching to all bike repairs all year long, that's alarming. And yeah, we want to keep those winter spirits alive and for Tahoe to be a winter hub still.
It was kind of a bummer when we started renting bikes in December, and we're able to rent bikes all through the season just to keep a little bit of business going. The lake doesn't bring anybody up in the winter time. If there's no snow, they go elsewhere. They go to Colorado or Utah.
It's critical to the survival of Haines because we rely on the environment to be maintained and to be healthy. You know, the financial impact for the small businesses here, all the restaurants, the bars, the hotels, the small shops. Our shops are locally owned, family-owned businesses in Haines, and we struggle to be in business here.
When I can pull out my mountain bike in February and ride a trail that goes up to 7,000 or 8,000 feet, that's wrong. It's bigger than just us getting a powder day. It's the water, it's the economy.
Fighting climate change here would protect people. It's going to protect their jobs. It's going to protect where they can live. It's protecting the stability of communities.
I'm hopeful. I mean, all you can do is hope, right? Every year you start over and you start hoping again, but you know, you hear the news and hear scientists talking about climate change. Are we gonna exist here in 20 years as a ski town? Or are we gonna be going to something else?
We're definitely gonna have, you know, some hard conversations to look at, some hard numbers to crunch to figure out, you know, what this season meant. This industry needs to grow skiers. And to do that, it's a consistent product to do it.
And you're like, wow, you know, I'm 26, by the time I'm 30, this might be like an inexistent career. If you are that 99 percentile that kind of is just staying to your zone, enjoying your life, you're not gonna see those changes or realize how much they're gonna affect our way of life until it hits you, you know? No one's gonna change what they do until it starts affecting them. And I understand why people don't get it.